For this tutorial, we are going to create a countdown timer, and we are going to have something so that when we collect an item, we have a few more seconds added to our countdown timer. Now, in order to do this, what we're first going to need to do is add in a few collectibles. Now, I've already got some collectibles in my level 1, and what I need to do is make these into objects. So I'm going to just right click on my level 1, create good object, and I'm going to go collect. And as this is my level 1, I'm going to just call it L1 at the end of it, and I'm going to just set these to be collectible. Now, what we will need to do is when the player and the coin collide, so this is a coin at the moment, we're then going to get it to disappear. So if I just go add an event, collision with the object player, for now all I'm going to do is throw in the destroy instance. Now if I go back to my room and let's add in a collectibles layer, and let's add in a few of these here. So you can see these are actually quite big. You could make them a little bit smaller if you need to. There you are. So we've got a few on here. Now if I just play this just to test it out. Lovely. So we can see that works. Lovely. Okay, so the first thing that we now need to do, second thing we need to do is, because we've got the collectibles now working, we now need to get some sort of countdown timer at the top. Now to do this, I am going to create a new object. So right click object, and I'm going to call this Game Manager. Now the purpose of this is so that I can store things like a score in there. I can store things like health systems later on if I wanted to, but obviously now at the moment we're going to make a timer. So if I add an event and then go to create, what we're going to do is you're going to make a variable, and this is going to be set to, now if I use the variable time, you can see there isn't one there, which is good, so I can use it, and I'm going to set the time to be 60. Now this will give me basically 60 seconds then for the game. Now in order to see this, what we are going to do is click on add event, and then we're going to go to a draw and a draw GUI. Now what this will allow me to do is add in a draw value. So I'm going to say then time left, and time left, and we're going to use the value time. Now at the moment you can see it's got 0, 0 there with the X and the Y. If I just go back to my room for a second, I want this to be around about this position. Now if you look at the bottom here, you can see there's coordinates. So if I want it to be placed around here, say, it's going to be 1150 by 30. So let's try and put that in. 1150 by 30. And the last thing we need to do is we need to put this in the game somewhere. So if I go back to my room and I'm going to add in a new instance layer, and I'm just going to call this managers, and I'm just going to dump this then here. Now it doesn't matter necessarily where I put it, because you're not going to actually see it. Normally if I just drag the walls down there and click on there, you'll see now there's this question mark with the object. It's because we haven't bound it to a sprite, but that's absolutely fine. So let's just try this, and what you should see is, there you are, time left 60. Lovely. Now that's all very well and good, however this isn't counting down, so what we'll need to do is change it. So let's open the workspace back up again, and what we want to do is be able to count down. Now every second we want it to do something. Now the way we can do that is by using something called an alarm. Now in order to do this, what we are going to need to do is create the alarm. So I'm just going to hide this for a second to make things a little bit easier to see. So I'm going to click on my set alarm countdown, and I'm going to set it to 60. Now the reason I'm setting it to 60 in this version of Gamemaker, it's basically running at 60 frames a second. So basically 60 there will be counted as 1 second. Now what we need to do is basically then take 1 off the alarm each time. So let's add an alarm in. And what we're going to do is we're going to go time, and then I'm going to do -1 relative, and then we reset the timer as well. Okay, so I go back to that and then put 60 in. So what happens is, because this is every 1 second, so every 1 second it'll take 1 off the timer. Now if I just play this, what you'll notice then is we now have a working countdown, which is nice. Now, wouldn't it be nice if we had these collectibles and each time we hit a collectible, our time would be added to? So instead of being, say, 40, it'll then add, say, 5 seconds to it or whatever. Well, this is fairly straightforward to do. We can do this in 2 ways. We can either make time a global variable, or we can actually access the variable from another object. Now, I'm going to access the variable from another object for now, but you could do it with a global variable, and if there's need, I can do another video for that later. So what we're going to do in here is, if I click on the O-collect, we've already got our collision here, and what I want to do is drag in my variable, and we need to access the time variable, but the time variable's in this O Game Manager. Now to do this, we go O Game Manager. Now notice I've spelt it exactly the same way and written it exactly the same way as it's called, using capital letters. And if I do .time, you'll notice it says then, haha, there's a variable. Now if we set the time to 5 relative, what that will do is it will add on 5 to the variable time. So let's just try this out. So you can see this now is counting down, 58, 57, whoop, 61, 60. So this now is added on, obviously, 5 seconds for me each time. Now, you might not want to have 5 seconds. If you didn't want 5, just change that value to be a little bit smaller. Or if you wanted more, you can make it a little bit bigger as well. But what happens if we actually run out of time? Well, in order to run out of time, obviously the timer will have to go to 0. So then what you'll need to do is end the game. And what I would do for that is, let's add in a new room. And let's say this is going to be called Game Over. Now, at the moment, I'm not going to design anything for the Game Over screen. All I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of the background so that you know and you can see it's actually working. So I'm going to go for this blue background so you know then it's Game Over. Now, obviously, if I was going to do this correctly, I would have a little Game Over screen. I'd have your score counter on here and a few other things. So let's just go back to this. What we're going to do is we need to run a check, and this check needs to run all the time. And what we need to say is, if the time is less than 0, then obviously we've lost. So let's just do this now. So let's go add step, begin step, and what we're going to look for is this if variable. So we're going to say if the time is less than 0, then what we want to do is we want to go to room. So if I look for go to, here we are, go. And notice I put the room on the right hand side of this if statement, just to show you, if you were to do this, just put it underneath, then that will not work. Okay, so just make sure that it is on the side here. And then what we do is we tell it which room to go to. So we go into the room, which is called Game Over. Now, in order to test this out, what we need to do is play it, and let's just wait 60 seconds. Now, I could, if I wanted to, change this, and we could make it a little bit slower, but I'm just going to test the rest of the game out, just make sure all my collisions work. Okay, so as you can see, collisions are working, and we just got to wait now 30 seconds for the game to expire. In fact, yeah, looking at that, nearly there. Here we go. Lovely. So you can see now that has worked. That's gone onto my game over screen, and that works. Now obviously on the game over screen you could have a button which says, you know, play again, or take me back to the main menu, depending on what you want to do. Your choice entirely. The other option, whilst you're testing, if you didn't want to make a game over room, if you wanted to just do a restart, there's an option there to say restart room or restart the entire game. Obviously you can put these in instead if you wanted to do a little bit of a test with that.